Tonight's meal, tilapia surprise with boiled cabbage. Begin cooking steps 1 through 50 now.
Are you kidding me? Making dinner shouldn't feel like doing a 1,000-piece puzzle. With Blue Apron's new one-pan assemble and bake meals, the hard part's already done. Pre-chopped ingredients, zero stress. Just assemble, bake, and enjoy. No complicated steps, no mountain of dishes. Try Assemble and Bake today. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Thank you for calling the Bombas Comfort Line. Bombas make socks, slippers, tees, and underwear made with the highest quality materials. Press 1 for comfort, 2 for style, 3 for donation. You chose style. Bombas is styles for whatever you enjoy. You can run in Bombas, lounge in Bombas, dress them up, dress them down, but always give back in Bombas. Because with every item purchased, another is donated. Bombas, comfort worth calling for. Go to bombas.com/audio and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com and use code AUDIO.
I'm Yumi Stynes, and this is the Sober Awkward podcast.
The kettle's boiled, Vic.
Great. Perfect timing. Just a dash of milk for me, please, mate.
Here you go. Shall we get started then?
Have you ever woken up on a Sunday morning and said, I'm never drinking again, and then found yourself waving $50 at a barman by happy hour?
Are you wondering why everyone else can stop at 1 while you head to a dodgy after-party with a weird bloke called Disco Dave? If so, it might be time to take a deeper look at your relationship with your reliable social crutch, alcohol.
On each episode, we'll investigate our own dysfunctional dealings with booze and find out if it's possible to stop this deeply ingrained habit before things get too messy.
Yep, we're going to open up a shame shed of humiliating drinking stories to help you understand why waking up from a booze coma each weekend with a kebab sticking out of your top pocket might actually be negatively impacting your health.
Hamish and I are here to delve into what it's like being sober, an unwanted warts and all look into why giving up those cheeky pints or putting down those mummy wines will make you feel happier, help your anxiety and mental health, and turn you into the most sparkly, authentic version of you.
Won't that mean I become boring though, Vic?
Well, Hamish, we'll just have to wait and see. I'm Victoria Vanstone.
I'm Hamish Adams-Cairns.
And this is Sober Awkward.
For our Australian listeners in particular, today's guest needs no introduction. Yumi Stynes is a broadcaster, an author, a podcaster, and a mum of 4. She's known for being a brave and bold voice on feminism, justice, and other topics that too many are just afraid to shine a light on. You might know her from her time on radio, on TV as part of the Channel V crew, more on that later, or through her award-winning podcast, Ladies We Need to Talk. She's also a prolific writer with her much-loved Welcome To series covering the topics of consent, period, boobs, sex, just to name a few. She's smart, funny, unfiltered, and since January the 4th, 2016, she is also sober. So welcome to the Sober Awkward podcast, Yumi Stynes.
Yeah, yay me. I sound amazing.
Well, yeah, since moving here, Yumi, so I moved here in end of 2017. One of the things that I've noticed is that rural communities approach drinking a little bit differently to the rest. So you grew up in Swan Hill in Victoria. I spent some time living in New Norfolk in Tasmania and Cootamundra in New South Wales. It seems a little bit more extreme to me. Was that what it looked like in your upbringing? I'm diving straight in the deep end here.
Yeah.
Was it sort of an extreme take on drinking growing up in Swan Hill?
I think it probably was, Hamish, but I didn't have anything to compare with. And my friends and I guess family that were city-based seemed to drink heavily as well. But it was very much like if you went for a weekend camping or a weekend on someone's houseboat, you knowing that the adults wouldn't be driving, they would just really bed in for the drinking, and it would go all day, it would go long into the night, and it would be extremely, by definition, excessive.
Yeah. And so am I right in thinking your dad was quite a heavy drinker? Or was that both sides of the family? Yeah.
Yeah, no, my dad was all in. But at the time that seemed really normal. It seemed like all his peers, his whole cohort were also similarly enthusiastically thirsty.
Yes, I've heard you use that term before, which I quite like. It's kind of softer than a heavy drinker. Enthusiastically thirsty is a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
And your dad, Sally, when you were still quite young, I think you were just 19 when he passed away. I guess by 19, we sort of think we know what we're doing with regards to drinking. You know, most people start with that 14, 15. They want to be grown-ups and they feel about 30 by the time they're 19. Did grief and his passing affect your drinking? Did it sort of step up a gear, or were you already quite heavily embedded by then?
I think it was a bit of both, actually. Like, I was definitely very well established as somebody who drank a lot. I remember, how's this? I had fake ID from quite a young age, buying a case of beer in school uniform and carrying it on the tram and then up the hill. I was living in Melbourne doing years 11 and 12, and that was like completely, I thought, okay to be in school uniform, and it was a dress, like a tunic, and carrying that up the up the street, like just brazen. But my dad dying, I remember the funeral, and they had a wake afterwards, which is, I don't know, it's very big in waspy culture to sort of have this blinder afterwards. And I remember kind of this sense that nobody was in charge. There was alcohol everywhere. I was 19 and I got so drunk that I vomited in the shower night, the night of his funeral. So there was definitely an intersection of feeling bad and sad and drinking as a self-soothing mechanism.
And did that continue after the wake? How did you sort of deal with grief? It's such a fascinating subject to me, like grief at a young age, because I actually did a whole podcast series on how we can help our friends that lose a parent young deal with it better, because we don't know what to say, we don't know what to do, you don't want to put your foot in it, you don't want to talk about it too much or not talk about it at all. So did it continue after that wake? Did you find that you sort of drinking to deal with it, or were you able to sort of not address it and move on with your life and keep busy as a 19-year-old often is?
So that was the time when I was moving from high school into university. And what I did when I changed, this huge environment change from a school where everybody kind of knows your story to a very big city-sized university, which was Monash University in Clayton, was I didn't tell anybody that my dad was sick. So I had a whole bunch of new friends. None of them even knew I had a dad, let alone that he was dying and then that he died. Because I wanted it to be compartmentalised, and I didn't want this awful home situation to be something that I had to talk about at uni. So when he died, there was a couple of friends from my old school that knew and very beautifully showed up to the funeral without me telling them about it, without me mentioning it to them. But as far as everybody else goes, it was like that didn't happen. I was in complete denial, which was my way of dealing with things, was like, I'm not going to talk about it. That's classic.
A healthy way to do it.
Right, isn't it? But all this sort of therapy and stuff that I've done subsequent to that, it is a complicated picture, because a lot of my early adulthood, I blamed my dad for being a terrible model, because he was such an enthusiastic drinker that I just thought that the amount he consumed was very normal. I didn't really have a gauge on what's a normal amount. And you read the official medical guidelines on how much a human should drink, and it just sounds like bullshit. Like, it sounds like, what are you even talking about? It's like people talking about smoking or taking drugs. It's all just lies. Like, at no point do they ever say, you are going to have a fucking awesome night if you take these drugs. You're going to dance, you're going to pash someone, you're going to be on top of the world. And yeah, you might feel rubbish for a couple of days, but this is going to be a fun experience. No one in drug education ever says that. And so I just sort of felt the same about alcohol education. With whatever they're saying, it's bullshit. It has no bearing on real life. So I just took what I saw in my environment, which was my dad drinking 2 long necks of beer as a sort of a warm-up to getting into the wine. And then it might be a bottle of wine or a bottle and a half, depending on the night. And that seemed very like just a regular quantity to put into your body of a night. So I blamed him a lot for why I drank. But then I kind of realised a lot later that there was a lot of self-soothing going on, for other traumas that were part of a young teenage girl's life, that you weren't given many other tools to make yourself feel better. I think maybe eating is one of them, but alcohol was definitely one that I leaned on.
Well, also, I guess there's that whole moving home when you're quite young. There's this opportunity to create a new identity. You know, you said you moved to Melbourne for the last couple of years of school and then you moved to Monash University. Was there an aspect of like, right, I'm got a chance to sort of come in with this new energy and I can be the cool drinking one?
Yeah, I think there was that from a younger age, from high school, because I had fake ID, but also I had these two older siblings who kind of showed me what being in drinking culture was like, how to do it, how to navigate it. So I was showing my friends. So I felt like I was a bit of a leader in that. It's just appalling when you think about it now. But I loved it. But I think, this is the part that makes me sad, is I think I had a little bit of sort of social nervousness, which is completely understandable and very normal for my age. But I alleviated the nerves by numbing myself with alcohol. So, walking into a party, it's quite a nerve-wracking experience. Even as a grown adult, you're like, oh God, is anyone going to talk to me? Am I going to be standing here alone, sort of like yanking on my necktie, kind of, hoping that I don't look uncomfortable? And if you just have a drink in your hand and you're kind of 3 or 4 drinks in, the nerves are gone and you feel much more able to approach people or have just be spoken to.
It's just the first and most effective coping mechanism to those nerves that we encounter, isn't it? Yeah. Like, we're never nervous going into a kid's party when we're 7, but suddenly you're 14 and you're going through puberty and suddenly you're very conscious of how you feel and there's people that you fancy there and like booze fixes the feeling. It's just, It works and we lean into it really hard. I feel like wherever you grew up, anywhere in the world, people that have older siblings and fake IDs and can buy booze are cool. That's just what cool is to us as kids. And I know you've spoken about the sort of topic of cool during your time at Channel V. You said, your job was basically interviewing the coolest people on the planet, film stars and rock stars and musicians, whatever it is. And I guess what I'm interested to know is, did you see any correlation between what society thinks of as cool and their relationship with booze and drugs?
Oh, I don't know. I think you need to time travel for me to give an honest answer then, as opposed to now with everything I've learned since then. What I discovered was the essence of cool is generally a commitment to creativity. And it can be like making films or making music, but a sort of a single-mindedness about that makes you unself-conscious and it makes you passionate and it makes you maybe a little bit weird, but it gives you a very specialized kind of insight into some particular form of creativity. And often those people are really wacky. Sometimes they're weird. They're often very single-minded. They can be excessively driven. And I think for some of those people, they can help themselves out by drinking alcohol. But what I did find, and I've found to be true since then, was to be a successful, say, touring musician, like to be in U2, let's just say U2, for instance, you are not going to do well if you have a raging alcohol addiction, because you have to catch planes, you have to show up on time, you have to hit marks, you have to play well, you've got a lot of responsibility. So people can do it for a short amount of time with a big addiction, but probably not for as long as you two have done it. I know that Keith Richards is a living contradiction to what I just said. There's always an exception to the rule, but that generally seems to be the case, is that if you want to be successful in any kind of artistic forum, you need to have a certain amount of restraint or discipline when it comes to your addiction. The problem is, for musicians in particular, is they are in the most permissive environment for addiction.
Yes.
So backstage in their dressing rooms, there'll be a rider, which is like a nasty big black bucket filled with ice and just absolutely groaning with booze. And it's not just like easygoing beers, where you could have 3 or 4 and be okay. It's like bottles of Smirnoff or, and it all looks very delicious. And you're kind of like totally expected to drink before you go to work. And if not, and a lot of musicians are smart enough to know, I'll have 1 or 2 before I go on. But even if you're restrained there, then you knock off. You're on a high and you've got this huge heaving bucket of booze, and it would be a shame to not drink it all. I mean, it's just going to go to waste if you don't. So the coolness, I think, was a little bit of people who just have the courage to create for a living just generally are cool. My definition of cool now is people who are unguarded in their hearts and are unafraid to let people in. I think there's a real coolness to being earnest and loving and just kind of letting yourself be vulnerable and exposed to hurt and mockery and, or derision and all those kinds of things that you use alcohol to protect yourself from, I think, generally. So coolness has really become something that's very separate to drugs and alcohol for me.
I'm so glad you said that. I feel so strongly that exact same thing. I wish I could talk to myself when I was 14 and be like, what you think of as cool now is so far from cool. Like, what was cool then was the quiet ones. The quiet ones who didn't really say anything, who smoked and drank, obviously, and everyone fancied them because they were sort of mysterious and they didn't say anything. And now I'm like, they were just the boring ones. The boring ones that said nothing and smoked and drank to hide an insecurity. That is not what I find cool anymore.
Yeah. A musician friend of mine described going to, I think it was Brazil, and all the people who were local were getting up and dancing, and they were kind of like peacocking the shit out of each other and making eye contact and being sexy on the dance floor. Meanwhile, all the Australians were just drinking themselves into collapse, like just into a sort of a heap, because they didn't know how to speak this language of flirtation and connection that wasn't, should we just go and have sex? Or, it was like this whole lot of sexy, fully dressed foreplay that didn't involve getting wasted. And we Australians didn't have the vocabulary to participate. And that really made me feel sad, that all these vibrant people are up there dancing and having a great old time, and then there's people in the corner with a VB in their hands and their arms folded, just unable to participate.
Yeah, we could all do being a little bit more Brazilian. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that as a statement. But, it fascinates me, that music industry, because it feels like whether or not you are a musician in it or not, being close to it, you can get caught up in sort of drugs and alcohol. It struck me, I spoke to someone recently who asked me, who are the Australian guests that you've had on the podcast? And I was like, we've had Osher, we've had Maz Compton, and then we're going to be speaking to Yumi. And they were like, that's all the Channel V crew. I was wondering, was there an element of just working in the industry, even if you weren't a musician at that time, that fed into this sort of like, let's party and have a good time? Do you think that's changed even?
I don't know if it's changed because I'm not in it as much, but 100%, Hamish, like, oh my God, if you ever go to, say, the Arias, it's a whole scene, right? But if you haven't
worked at the Arias,
right,
I've seen
okay.
it.
But what is so fascinating, if you're an outsider and you're coming in, you don't really understand the machinations that go on behind the scenes, which is that everybody's from a record label, a PR company. They're from these touring agencies that have shit tons of money. They're those kinds of people, and the decorative sprinkles on top of the musicians, they kind of like, they come and go, they wash through. The big deal musician from 10 years ago is not in the room 10 years later. They are not invited 10 years later. It's those stalwarts who work behind the scenes that are showing up year after year. And for them, it's like their year 12 formal. They get to see everybody that they know. They get to take a lot of drugs, drink a lot of booze, talk the talk with all these people that they know and they fraternize with. And they love drinking and partying. Just as a caveat to saying that, because a lot of these people are still my friends, there is also no more accepting a group of people of anyone who wants to be sober. Mm-hmm. Because everybody in that industry has either been to hell and come back, or knows somebody and has loved somebody who has really hit the depths of addiction and returned or died. So if you are in a room like that and you're like, I'm completely sober, do not offer me a line, do not offer me a beer, they will be completely supportive and respectful of that. But yeah, it's the behind the scenes people that can find the drug dealers and also afford the drugs. The musicians are like, I can't afford a bag of coke. Are you kidding me? Just give me some cough medicine over here. Like, it's not happening for the musos.
We need to speak briefly about how you got the Channel V role. So we share a mutual friend, Ben Richardson, who told me the story the other day. And I looked it up last night. And it involves another sober icon who would be a dream guest for the podcast. Tell me about, I think it was during your work experience or during an audition, when you met Robbie Williams backstage. It's got nothing to do with sobriety. It's just a fantastic story that we need to hear.
It did help me get my first media job. Like, it is a big moment in my life, a turning point in my personal history. So what they did was Channel V was looking for a new reporter, and they had a short list of 7 or 8 of us, and I was one of them. So we were all shipped to Sydney. A lot of us were from interstate. I was living in Melbourne but working in the Victorian Alps on the ski fields at the time. So we got flown in and spent a week doing various challenges for TV. And the whole fun of it was then viewers got to vote on who they liked the best to be the next Channel V presenter. So it was like a big, lengthy audition, Big Brother kind of reality TV thing to engage the audience and also find hopefully a new reporter. As part of the challenges, we had to shoot stories, we had to go out on the field, we had to do vox pops, we had to review a concert. I think I reviewed Midnight Oil, and we had to do an interview. So James Matheson got to interview Destiny's Child, and I got to interview Robbie Williams. And so we'd been given probably 2 weeks warning, you're going to be doing this interview. I was like, oh my God, Robbie fucking Williams. And this was like right on the rock DJ phase. So he'd left Take That. He'd sort of been a little bit, quote marks, disgraced as the naughty one. Yeah. And I think like nowadays you'd want to be the Harry Styles. You don't want to be, the boring one. Anyway, so he was that guy. He just released Rock DJ. He was in full big dick energy mode, and he came to Australia to promote Rock DJ. And they were like, "You're going to do the interview." And I was like, "What the hell am I going to ask Robbie frickin' Williams?" And I thought, well, my job isn't really to go deep on the music because, frankly, who cares? It was more like, well, how do I ask questions that the Australian audience would want to ask, and what would that be? What would the Australian audience want to ask? And I thought if it was a woman or a gay man, they'd probably want to ask if they could kiss him, like if they could make out with him. So I worded him up backstage. It was actually via his manager, just to say, I'm going to ask Robbie if we can have a pash, or no, if we can snog. And he was like, oh, okay, I better go have a mint then. So he went and sucked on a mint to freshen up his mouth so he wasn't all crusty. Then I went out on set, and there was a live audience of many, many screaming, excited teenagers and young people, all just really, really so hyped. Robbie walks out on set, everyone loses their mind. Like, people were crying. And then he didn't wait for me to ask if I could kiss him. He just grabbed me and kissed me. And it was like, okay, I've got the fucking job at Channel V now. Try and take it out of my hands, man. Robbie Williams just snogged me on TV. And that moment where he did that got replayed over and over again. It was like, if you want to get the most grabbable, like snackable moment of live TV with a rock star and your freshest recruit, that's it. And it just went bananas. It went ballistic. And I kind of knew then and there that I probably had a job on TV.
It's so good. It's the funniest way to get a job. And bizarrely, Vic, who I do the podcast with, has also snogged Robbie Williams.
What?
I can't know what the story was. She met him backstage and just went for it. I feel like Robbie Williams maybe isn't shy with snogging. It didn't quite change her life in the way it changed yours. But it's a funny thing that you guys have got in common.
It's so funny that we've got that in common. But can I just say, I don't think I would objectify a man in that way in 2025. I think that would be a different time, right? And I think Robbie has the right to the sanctity of his body and his mouth without me putting mine on his, like, nasty.
He was classy enough to have a mince, and we'll forever respect him for that. Now, there were a few, like many of us, I feel like there was a few different factors that would play a role in your eventual sobriety. And I think I've sort of identified a few of them. I'd like to go through them individually if I could.
Oh, this is scary. I'm going to take off my scarf
scary.
Because I might sweat. Yeah, go.
So, to start with, I think, as you mentioned, you're a mother of 4 and you experienced post-natal depression for 2 of those 4. Something very close to home for me. We just had a daughter and my wife was going through prenatal depression for most of that pregnancy, and it was bloody awful, to be honest. What did postnatal depression look like for you?
I think a lot of postnatal depression is feeling trapped. And I think a lot of depression in general is about feeling unable to control your circumstances. So you feel helpless and you spiral, or you just sink down like Ewan McGregor in Trainspotting, you just sink through the carpet. There's so much in being a new mum. Your hormones are crazy, and I think that needs a fair bit of attention paid to it. It's sometimes the hormones just set the rules, and you just have to go on the ride. Yeah. But other times, I think there's a lot to be said about how the expectations of motherhood weigh so heavily on a person. You've got your body has basically been smashed up through the process of giving birth. When I was pregnant with my first child, I was super cocky. I was like, I'm 25, I'm supple, and I didn't go to a single birthing class. I was like, I don't want to be around those fat ladies huffing and puffing.
I've got this.
I'll be fine. Anyway, that was a very humbling experience. And I went into the subsequent 3 births with a kind of mentality like, I'm going to be in a violent car crash and I'm going to survive it, but it's going to be a lot. There's going to be some repercussions physically that I'm going to deal with for years to come. And that I don't think is a particularly optimistic way of looking at it, but I do think it was accurate for me at the time. The thing that happens, though, is that you discover that your partner will let you eat a fucking big bag of shit while you're in your most vulnerable state. And you have this dependent, and not much can alleviate the baby's need for you as the mother, but a lot could alleviate the need of others on you. And sometimes your partner just is kind of happy to just sit there and watch you drown. And that can be really upsetting, because at no point in your life are you more dependent on them, and at no point in your life, perhaps until you're very elderly, are you more vulnerable. So you really do have that sense of feeling very, very trapped, very stuck with the baby, very overwhelmed by that huge responsibility, which is lifelong, and then somebody won't even bring you a cup of water.
That was my full-time job. I was in charge of sparkling water. I can do very little in terms of the parenting here, but I will bring sparkling water to you 15 times a day, wherever you're sitting. That is basically the job of a new dad. I don't know how we can emphasize that more. That is the gig.
Yep, and make sure the phone's charged, put a pillow under the baby if you've got spare hands, and keep bringing food.
That's the job. That's dads for the first few months. I always say, I can't emphasize how little I judge any parent whose drinking increases in those early days of parenthood. It is difficult. It is stressful. You are home a lot. It's quite easy to drink because you haven't got to drive anywhere. So I understand why it happens. It's obviously I've described it as like a V in the road for many people with their drinking. Either you go, oh my God, this is so hard, I need to stop drinking. Or you go, this is so hard, my drinking is going to increase. I know you've described it as being an almost acceptable escape from parenting. Yeah. And it would eventually become a daily thing, but for you it was only beer. So you thought, well, it's only beer, how bad can it be? And I think so many of our listeners, I would say most of our listeners, are probably women who have been mums and have been in this situation. What kind of escape was it giving you, having a drink in those early days of parenting?
Here's how to stay alive longer so you can enjoy Boost Mobile's unlimited plan with a price that never goes up. Do not mistake a wasp nest for a piñata. Stay alive and switch now at Boost Mobile. After 30 gigs, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Mobile unlimited plan.
Why does every recipe I try need 18 ingredients, including a jar of something paste I'll never use again, but will sit in my fridge for 9 months? I just want dinner in the oven, fast. That's why I love Blue Apron's new one-pan assemble and bake meals. They send you fresh ingredients that are already chopped. All you do is put it all together and bake. That's it. No chopping, no weird leftovers, just delicious, easy-to-make meals. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
There's not much that we have to say, good on you, you've done a good thing, here's a reward. For a lot of us, it's food, but you get full. You get full of food and you're like, okay, what else is there to say, well done me? And it's alcohol. And alcohol, I think you can keep going a lot more. You can fit more of it in. You can sip it over a long time. You don't want to really sit over lasagna for 3 or 4 hours, I don't think. So it's really very much in a big desert where no one's looking after you and you're giving all the love to something else, where you feel like you're putting something back in for you. And that can be really dangerous. You know, if you don't have much else to say, you're a good person, you deserve reward, you deserve care, alcohol can start to be the only thing. And that's when it gets really risky, I think.
Another factor to, I guess, why it feels as if from an outsider that you drank a lot and then would look for sobriety is that you've always had this very cruel self-talk, which a lot of our listeners relate to and always say, yeah, I'm lovely to other people, but I'm bloody horrible to myself internally. How long did drinking effectively silence that voice before it sort of switched and then didn't help anymore?
Yeah. Look, the cruel self-talk thing, I actually don't think I'm particularly bad with that now. And I don't think I was particularly bad with it when I was drinking. I think I was pretty much on the standard level of self-talk. But the drinking would make it quiet for that night. Really, that's all. And that's why it's such a cycle, because you're like, I'll just make it quiet tonight and I'll worry about tomorrow. You wake up the next day feeling absolutely wretched, and that voice is louder than it was before, just saying the worst things because you fucked it up. You drank last night. Like, the whole point was you were going to have a nice sober night. You were going to wake up clear-headed. You were going to kick some goals and go for a run or something and be amazing. And then you blew it by starting to drink, which meant that you kept drinking, which means that you've woken up a little bit still drunk and you feel terrible about yourself. So that cycle I found really fascinating. It was like, this is genuinely evil, because I've woken up feeling terrible and I am swearing on my life that I will not drink today. Yeah. But by sort of 3 o'clock, you're starting to feel like a little bit better. And then by 4 or 5, you're like, all right, how am I going to plan to have some alcohol in the house now? And really like bed that in quietly so no one notices. It's just round and round you go. And next thing you know, you're doing it on a daily basis because you're in the loop.
Well, I've heard you talk about the fact that you gave up a few times before you gave up this time, including once for, I think, was it 2 years you gave up? Was that a longer stretch? Yeah. And the difference that you made this time was that you spoke to people about it and you spoke publicly about it. Why was that such an effective trick that worked?
Well, I know we like to say that shame doesn't work as a motivator, but and it doesn't. But I did feel like I needed some accountability, and so telling people that I really want to stay sober, having the courage to go to just one AA meeting, which I found really interesting, and it also, being public about it, meant that friends of mine who are in sobriety programs, could reach out to me and we could have chats off grid, the two of us, about sobriety and find brotherhood in that was really, really helpful. But I did really like the idea, and also hated the idea, that somebody might point to me at a restaurant and go, that's Yumi Stynes. She's drinking wine. Hey, she said she's sober and I can see that rosé in her hand. And I would be ashamed and I would die a little bit. And that sort of accountability, even though it sucks and it's really embarrassing and it's also an invasion of your privacy, I was like, I don't want anybody to ever be able to do that to me. And so by owning it publicly meant that I ran that risk, and that was a risk that was also motivating. There weren't, to be honest, in this most recent iteration of sobriety, it has felt pretty solid. There haven't been very many moments when I've felt it waver. I think the riskiest time is the first couple of months, and in that I threw one of my kids a birthday party that was a karaoke thing in the city, and it was really stressful, and it was in a noisy, shouty room, and I'd been sober for a couple months, and I withdrew from the room. I was like, they're all set. I'm going to fuck off. I'm going to go and get some sashimi and a beer. And I went to this Japanese restaurant across the road and sat down, and they had non-alcoholic beer. And I was like, it's a sign from God. It's a sign from God, because I can get the sashimi and I can get the beer and I'm still sober. And thank God. Like, I just don't know if I would have had a real beer if that option hadn't been available to me, but it presented itself to me. And for maybe a year, I relied on non-alcoholic drinks sometimes, like just to kind of scratch that itch. That itch is gone completely now, so I don't even have non-alcoholic drinks in the house because they're just sort of a bit silly. I don't really get it anymore, but I did get it at the time, and it really helped.
It's interesting, that topic of shame, because it's such a factor in people's drinking. And then, like you say, it can be a great motivator to get sober. Had it gotten to the stage when you were having to hide the truth about your drinking, or hide the bottles, or not tell your partner or your friends or your colleagues the full story?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I would definitely hide the bottles. It wasn't like cases and cases of bottles. It was, if you're not a very observant partner, you probably might not notice. One time I remember, it was a couple of partners ago, but I remember hearing the bottle collecting truck pull up outside the house, and I was like, shit, I haven't emptied the case of empty bottles in my house into the main bin, and he's going to get back off tour because he was a musician. He's going to get back off tour and see all the bottles. So I threw on a robe and chased the garbage truck down the road, but my robe was flapping open, and I had to make a decision. Do I make it to the truck and like have my robe flapping open, or am I going to miss the opportunity to have my bottles collected? And I did it. I caught the garbage truck and had them collect my bottles because I didn't want him to know what I was up to. I had another really crushing moment with one of my best friends and this was really close to the day I quit drinking, where she just rang on my doorbell one night and I was like, oh, hi. And I was so confused. And I had no recollection, but we'd talked on the phone the night before and we'd agreed that she'd come over at 4 p.m. and she showed up, and my brain had erased that because I'd been drinking. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to fake that I knew, but she could tell something was up. She's my best friend. Like, she was like, bitch, you look so confused right now. So we went through with the hang, but I was hungover, and I was like, I cannot be this guy anymore. This is just awful. And so that was another, when it's sort of like the cup is starting to fill up with drips of shame, and it's so full, at some point you're going to have to decide that you've got to get the alcohol out of your life. So that was a real turning point as well.
I like the thought that sober you is worried about someone in a restaurant going, is that Yumi Stynes with a glass of wine? But when you were still drinking, you is not worried about someone like, is that Yumi Stynes streaking down our road, chasing a bin truck with a load of empty bottles?
Flapping in the wind. Oh, my God.
The boundaries change. The boundaries do change. Another interesting part of your sobriety story was the role that spiritual growth would play in it. It's something I hear less often, but when I do hear it, it seems to be a very effective tool. How did that present itself to you as a lever that you could pull to help you get sober?
Spiritual growth, I don't know, like it's a loaded phrase, and spirituality is really loaded because it can often be synonymous or used synonymously with religion. Of course. And I find that kind of dangerous. I don't love it. And then I've had other people say, oh, you're not spiritual, Yumi. You don't even believe in star signs. That's so good. But spirituality for me, I guess I get it via my mum. So my mum is Japanese. Her dad and two brothers are Buddhist priests, but she sort of shunned Buddhism because she found it gendered and sort of full of shit. But she's very spiritual in her own way. And it's about caring, and it's about trying to, like, in the balance of things, put more good into the world than bad. And it's checking in with yourself and asking, does this make me feel good in my heart? Or does this make me feel like I've done something shitty and polluting? And so what I found with getting sober was I just had so much more control over myself. So my choices were so much better for my spirit. And if you do something that makes you feel good, like you help an old lady with her shopping bags, getting it into her car, or just something really minor that costs you nothing, and you get that little boost where you're like, that felt really good and I want to do more of that. Sobriety helps you get more control over how can I bring more goodness into my behaviours on a daily basis, and the payoff is immediate. Like if you suddenly ring that friend that you've been putting off ringing, even though you love them, but you've just sort of been gutless about making the first move, but you're sober now and you've kind of got a little bit of space for that kind of reaching out, you do that, you feel amazing. And then they sort of stack up, one upon the other, and you feel braver, you feel more rewarded. And I think that it comes to this space within yourself where you feel strong and you feel tranquil, and that gives you a certain amount of power to keep reaching out and keep making good choices and keep being socially brave. And I just think the rewards just multiply.
So is it more something that helps you stay sober happily than something that helped you get sober? It wasn't like a spiritual voice in your head going, "You're a piece of shit." Is it more once you've given up, you're like, "You're doing a great job. Keep carrying bags across roads."
Maybe a little bit of both, I think. It's certainly, I think, the things you find yourself doing when you're a piece of shit drunk, whether it be like, I don't know, kissing someone that you don't like, or maybe kissing someone who you know is partnered, or like regular things like being suddenly busting and you have to drop your pants and do a wee on the street. Just little things, big things, but you're constantly demeaning your own values when you're very drunk. And I think that when you're not very drunk, your values are very solid, and there's the compromises that you used to make no longer occur. So you just feel better. A lot of mental health stuff is about aligning your life and your behaviours in life with your values. And the more aligned they are, the better you feel.
Another thing that seemed to appear since becoming sober, you've said you weren't a huge exerciser, but then you got sober. You went to the gym every day for a while until COVID hit and you had to cancel your membership. Is that right?
Yeah, I went to the gym every day. Exercise, I don't know. Look, I think what you're saying and what I'm seeing from the pattern of your questions is this life pre-sobriety where you line up things to try and make yourself feel good, like sex and drinking and parties and endorphin hits, and then post-sobriety, it's like, what drugs? And I love to use the word drugs. What drugs can I take to make myself feel good? And one of them is definitely exercise. It just makes me feel amazing. I feel so smug if I've been for a run or something, especially if I do it in the morning. I just spend the whole day feeling really good, and it's infused through my whole body, my legs, my torso, my arms, as well as my heart and my head. I just feel really amazing. And having tried drugs, I'm like, I think that this might be the best of all the ones I've tried. So I'm into taking this drug like every day as part of my medicine, as part of my feel-good kind of regime, as part of my mental health kind of management. And the other drug that I take that I'm really conscious of, and I've become much more conscious of in recent years, is human connection. So that is a drug that I find it is obscure to a lot of other people. They don't really see it the way I see it. I see it as like I need a hit. I need to set up a hang with a friend. I need to have really meaningful time with my kids where we actually like laugh together, and a lot of that is very intentional. Whereas I think a lot of people are just like, no, I just might see them if I can be bothered or whatever. It seems like a bit more of a chore. But I'm into taking this drug as well. So between the two drugs of exercise and human connection, I think there's a lot that's managed very well with my mental health. And I just want to gobble it up as much as I can.
I'm so glad you mentioned that smugness as well. Vic and I always joke that you can tell someone who's newly sober, they radiate an air of smugness that is very noticeable, particularly if they've gone for a run early. They'll probably let you know about it. They'll probably say, I got up at 5 and then it's 7:30 now and I've already been on a run. I've already met up with a friend for a coffee. I've been for a walk. I've been for a swim. Okay, yeah. Sober? Yeah. Less than 6 months? Yeah. Correct.
But it's been 9 years and it hasn't worn off for me. I'm still in the smug mode, which is great. When I got that job at Channel V, I was like, I'm going to be fucking happy about this for as long as I can be. And I was. Like, I just really kept that gladness. And I think that's another key to mental health, to good mental health, is just appreciating the good stuff in your life when you have it.
I'm conscious of time. I just want to end by asking you a question that comes up a lot on the podcast. People assume that I have a problem with drinking, so if I give up drinking, all of my problems will go away. And sadly, it's not as simple as that. Your life still have lots of ups and downs, career, life, whatever it might be. What have you found have been the most effective coping mechanisms that you've been able to use since going sober? Now we can't just go, I'll have 9 beers and everything will be fine.
I don't know, have a cry.
Yes.
You're quite right. Like, part of me wants to disagree because my life improved so exponentially once I quit drinking for real. And I've said this on other people's podcasts, but for every year I've been sober, I've written a book. And prior to quitting drinking, I had never written one book.
Yeah.
So that payoff is so measurable and tangible. It's actually ridiculous. But what I've also experienced, and I've heard a lot of people talk about this, is that your traumas surface. The ones you've been furiously squashing down with drinking, they start to come up and you have to process that. And it can be very raw and very painful. But I think at the same time, part of you, even in the depths of the awfulness, part of you is like, wow, look at me feeling stuff, because I'm not numb and I'm not postponing it till tomorrow by drinking today. I'm kind of in it right now. And there's a certain beauty and reveling in that I think that can help you get through it. But I do think that for whatever pain you have to process and traumas that you have left undealt with, the rewards of sobriety are so much greater. They so greatly outweigh the pain that you have to go through.
Yes.
But if you're a dick, like if you're just a dick with a bad personality and no friends, then that's going to be a problem you're going to have to deal with sober. But you'll probably have more tools to deal with it, given that you're not shit-faced half of the day.
If you're a dick, fundamentally, we can't help you. That's over to you. With or without booze, there's still plenty of dicks who are sober. We've all met
So
them.
true.
I just want to finish by saying a huge thank you. I think from speaking with you and from following your career, you're clearly someone who's got a very succinct purpose in life. And whether or not that's through your books or your podcast, you're clearly just trying to make the world a better place, particularly for women and children. I've got a daughter that she fits the mold. Great, you're built for her. And I feel like the fact that you've excelled across so many different spheres, you've got cookbooks and children's books and podcasts and broadcasting, whatever it is that you do, I think from anyone who is battling an addiction to look at someone like you, you were successful before, but you got sober and your productivity's gone absolutely through the roof, is such an inspiration. And I want to thank you for the work that you do, and I want to thank you for coming onto our podcast and sharing your story.
And I want to thank you for your thoughtful questions. Thanks, Hamish.
If you're questioning your relationship with booze, you're struggling to moderate, or your hangovers are causing anxiety, it might be time to reach out for some support.
Yeah, just talk to a mate about how you're feeling, contact a local doctor, find an AA or sobriety group. Vic's got one.
Yeah, just head to www.cuppa.community.
Remember, if you're questioning yourself, it might be time to seek support.
Even though this journey can be awkward, it is definitely worth it. And if you've enjoyed the Sober Awkward podcast, don't forget to review it, rate it, and share it with your mates.
They have to share it with their mates?
Yeah, of course they do. I'm not doing this for nothing, Hamish. Bloody hell.
How do they share it?
I don't know, just write it on the document.
Skip the gym, not the workout. With Hydro, you get a full-body workout in just 20 minutes, hitting 86% of your muscles in one smooth, low-impact motion. And now there's the new Hydro Arc, Hydro's most advanced rower yet. Arc introduces Hydrometrics, tracking your power, endurance, and precision every time you row, so you can actually see your progress. Go to hydro.com and use code ROW to get $100 off any Hydro rower, including Arc. That's HYDROW.com, code ROW.
Hey, it's Mark Maron from WTF here to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. And I'm sure the reason you're listening to this podcast right now is because you chose it. Well, choose Progressive's Name Your Price tool, and you could find insurance options that fit your budget, so you can pick the best one for your situation. Who doesn't like choice? Try it at Progressive.com. And now, some legal info. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Wix. It's where website creation meets AI and where your boldest ideas become real. It just takes one platform to build a site that looks great and does everything you need it to. And it just takes one person, you, to start taking care of business like a 10-person team. With AI tools for creating an entire website from scratch or testing new ways to make money, Wix is there with you from day one. Try it out now at Wix.com.
So, as you probably know, my comedy memoir, 1,000 Wasted Sundays, is officially out. All my magnificent fuck-uppery in one awkward hit. If you'd like to get your hands on a copy, it's now available from all good bookstores.
We always say all good bookstores, don't we?
Yeah.
Are there bad bookstores?
No, it's probably ones with moody sellers.
Oh yeah, really depressed librarian folk.
Yes,
Okay,
good. So there are probably some, but we're only storing it in the good ones.
It's only made it into the goodies.
You can also get it from all good online retailers. The print version and ebook are out now, and the audiobook will be available in March. I've been writing my memoir for 5 years. It will make you laugh, cry and cringe, and hopefully inspire a few people to reconsider their relationship with booze. If you love the podcast, then I think you'll love the book, even if I do say so myself. Hamish has read it. What did you think?
I feel like I know a little bit too much about you now, to be honest, Vic. Look, I really loved it. It was hilarious and surprisingly moving, but I feel like I've seen you naked in a literary sense.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's worrying.
Yeah. From an emotional point of view, seriously, it wobbled my teeny weeny wooden heart, Vic.
Okay.
My teeny little wooden heart.
Well, his wooden heart is broken. Anyway, so if you do manage to get your filthy mitts on a copy, please do me a favour and head to goodreads.com and give me a review. Doing that will help me get it out there to those that need a bit of sober support. So there you have it. My story, unwanted warts and all. Come and get awkward with me.
Not to be too demanding or anything, but seriously, go and buy it now.
Go and buy it. Go and buy it right now.
Yeah, don't just tell your friends, buy it, and then buy your friends one or two.
Yeah, don't give them a copy, buy it. Yeah.
And you know what? Don't be careful where you store it. If you lose it, you can always buy another 5.
Buy another one.
Yeah.